News Center Maine is partnering with the Maine-Monitor to bring you some of the reporting being done by the journalists at the nonprofit independent publication. And each Monday, right here on News Center Maine, we'll be featuring some of their work. So today we are talking about rumble strips. So those windy country roads can be anxiety producing, especially when the most deadly type of crashes in our state are what's called lane departure crashes. So that's when vehicles cross the center line and they collide essentially head on. But a new study shows those little grooves in the road are actually making a big difference and lowering fatalities on the roads. We want to bring in Benjamin Cassidy, a reporter with the Maine-Monitor, for more information on this study, what we're learning. So, Benjamin, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start with some basics so we're all on the same page here. What are rumble strips?
So rumble strips are those little grooves in the road that when you pass over them, they vibrate your car, right? So many of us have done this perhaps accidentally, gone over one of these strips, and sometimes they're on the edge of the road, sometimes they're in the center of the road, but basically they're there to alert distracted drivers when they're leaving their lanes.
Sadly, I imagine a lot of us are familiar with that. A gentle reminder that maybe we're drifting out of the lane there. How long have we seen these on our roads?
So they were first added to the edges of the interstate about 3 decades ago, but it's much more recently that they've been added to the center of rural roads. So the Maine Department of Transportation has been adding these gradually since 2006 in different stretches of state roads around Maine.
So we certainly are seeing them more slowly once we get off the highway. In
Right.
the data you've been looking at for this report, what are you finding in terms of their effectiveness to prevent these lane departure crashes as they're being identified?
So in short, they're very effective. So a study recently conducted by researchers at the University of Maine found that rumble strips reduce lane departure crashes by anywhere from 28% to 48% on rural two-lane roads. So these really narrow roads that you're winding around in Maine. And it varied depending on the traffic level on these roads and other characteristics of them. But this is important because lane departure crashes, which is a technical term for head-on collisions, side swipes, when people cross over the center line, these are the deadliest type of crash.
Mm.
So even though they only make up about 30% of the total number of car crashes on the road, they make up about 73% of the fatalities. So if you limit these types of crashes, it has a really big impact on lowering the total number of traffic fatalities and injuries in the state.
I mean, those statistics certainly kind of speak for themselves of the effectiveness when we look at this type of crash. So I guess kind of the obvious question would be, why don't we see more of them on our roadways?
So when they were first installed, there were definitely some complaints in rural communities about the noise that they were causing, ironically, right? So not only causes this vibration in the car, but you hear it if you're outside of the car. And so what they started to do in 2018, and they started to do this exclusively in 2018, they started installing a different type of strip that was shallower and made less noise externally. So it was less of an intrusion in these communities. And that really reduced the number of complaints. And I guess they're sometimes called mumble strips, is the colloquial name for them. But it also just takes time to introduce these around the state. So the Maine Department of Transportation is aiming for about 100 miles along of rumble strips along roads each year, but that's a high number. That's sort of their goal. And there are hundreds and hundreds of miles of road still to go. So one of the interesting things actually that the study talked about is cost isn't as big of a factor as you might think. So it only costs in the neighborhood of like $5,000 to install per mile to install rumble strips. So the researchers found that the benefit of installing these is about 14 times the cost, at least 14 times the cost, because the Federal Highway Administration puts numbers around what a car crash will
Uh,
cost in dollars and cents, which is obviously a crude measure, but what that will end up costing a state. So it's not just saving lives; it's also saving the state money too.
So again, more statistics that certainly back up the effectiveness of these working in the value there. So if the state is kind of looking at that 100 miles as a high-end target, if you will, how are they deciding where to start each year to put these in?
So they're prioritizing roads with the highest amounts of traffic, state roads. So these aren't town and city roads, and they're also looking at some other factors. So if a road is going to be paved in a year or two, they're probably not going to touch that until it's been paved, so that they don't want to have to redo the process of installing these strips. But so it's really gradual, and there are still many major roads in Maine that don't have them.
Again, even at 100 miles, it's going to take a while to reach all of Maine. Benjamin
Right.
Cassidy, thank you for sharing a little bit of your reporting. Great to talk with you about it. Again, we all travel the roads, so this is something that touches a lot of us.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Brian.
You can read much more about this report and all the work being done by the team at the-maine-monitor.org.